Tonight, Silverstone, the busiest heliport in the world.
Helicopters everywhere.
Our pilot trainees discover there's more to learn than flying.
Geronimo!
And we island hop in the South Seas. But first to Grand Prix Day. This is Silverstone. Although it's quiet now, come the Grand Prix, the skies overhead will be swarming with helicopters.
On the day, this is the world's busiest controlled airport.
Race day will see an incredible 4,000 helicopter movements.
It exceeds Heathrow and everything by about fivefold. I mean, the helicopter movements are astounding.
9,000 passengers will be ferried in and out.
There will be helicopters arriving on the North Pad, approximately 60 to 70 every 15 minutes.
But it's not just Silverstone that's transformed for race day. Our story starts deep in a sleepy corner of the Buckinghamshire countryside. Yes, it's a pub, and for 364 days of the year, it's just a pub. But for one day, it's a licensed airfield. One of 17 satellite airfields set up for today's massive operation is here at Beachhampton, a temporary home for the fleet run by Stephen Bath.
This is the farmer's field. It's normally just got sheep in it, but for one day I pay him a very large amount of money and he lets me use it for helicopters, yeah.
7 jet rangers and 1 long ranger work continuously throughout the morning and evening, so the fuel bowser is essential. So why are people prepared to pay £300 each to fly into the Grand Prix?
Well, it's now 8:30 in the morning and the traffic jam queues will be about 5 or 6 miles long already, and they'll be about 8 miles long by 9:30. And for the young man with a girlfriend in a high-performance car, which does not run well at 2 miles an hour, he will say, next year I will pay anything to get out of the jam.
What happened the last time you went?
Drove in.
And?
Painful. Very, lot of time to get in.
Last time I came, I drove, and it was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare. It took so long, so I mean, helicopter is the way to get in.
Among the fleet at Beachhampton is commercial pilot and the owner of his own jet ranger, John Poole. And you've sort of done it before, obviously.
Yes, I have. I've done it for about 5 years now. First year was a bit nerve-wracking.
But you look forward to it, what, as a test of your piloting?
Well, yes, yeah, I mean it is. Well, it's pretty exciting to see so many helicopters around, really, so yeah, it's pretty good. And it just gets more and more exciting the nearer you get to the circuit.
At the peak of the morning's action, it was my turn to fly. What lay ahead promised to be quite an experience. John had warned me that the RT en route would become a real earful.
10 degrees, 10 knots. Cav OK. Q&H 1023. Northern heliport users are reminded that the hold is left hand for West Point.
Well, the Northern Pad is primarily light helicopters, things like Jet Rangers, Squirrels, Augusta 109s, who are normally only carrying 4 to, at the most, 7 passengers. Whereas on the Southern Pad, they're the heavy helicopters. They will be carrying up to 28 passengers.
Purple 02, roger. All aircraft in the hold, remain in the hold, stop transmitting. I'll call you when I can get you in. Grey 4, join approved, report West Point. Yellow 4, join approved, report West Point. Yellow 4.
Turnaround times on the Northern Pad, a helicopter will be turned round in 45 seconds. That's arrival, passengers off, and doors closed, spot turn and ready to lift.
White 6 finals. White 6 goes against the liner.
Well, here it is, the busiest heliport in the world.
Having landed, I couldn't believe what was following me in. have to tell you, flying in, I felt a bit like a bee going back to a nest in a swarm. Helicopters everywhere. The heart of the Silverstone operation is here in air traffic control. With so many movements, it's quicker to call helicopters by a colour and number call sign rather than their usual full registration. So, coloured blocks replace the familiar flight strips for the 6 controllers and their assistants.
Go down to the bottom by Neptune.
A veteran of the system is Air Traffic Control's Peter Rover.
Air traffic has to be a highly disciplined organisation, possibly more so than piloting. This year, the race has been brought forward an hour, which gives us an hour's more daylight to fly people out. The temptation is to fly more people in the morning, but if there was an interruption, a lot of people might get stuck here when darkness overtook them.
Of course, there was the feared delay following Michael Schumacher's dramatic accident, but everybody did get home, and the successful reputation of Silverstone Airport remained intact.
In the air at one time. But the helicopter operation at Silverstone is now so large, quite a decent queue there just to fly out. Still, it's a whole lot better than going by road.
For years, in-flight catering had a dismal reputation. But now many operators are working hard to reverse the stereotype of stale rolls and rubber chicken. Vicky Kimm reports on one airline leading the way. Regional carrier Crossair agreed to reveal some of the secrets of in-flight catering.
Then business class, we have an English breakfast with some eggs, with sausages, some cheese. In economy we are serving a continental breakfast with ham and cheese, with fresh fruits. We serve a cup of coffee or tea and fresh orange juice.
Crossair competes by marketing itself as a quality service. A key part of the product is the food, but probably few of these passengers would guess at the scale of the operation needed to bring them something edible at 35,000 feet. This is G-AWNH in Geneva, where many of Crossair's meals are produced. The facility is set up like a giant conveyor belt.
The food arrives here in this part. We have 4 different sectors. We have first the sector for the fish with the blue boards. Here the sector with the chicken with the yellow boards. Then we have the sector for beef, red beef with the red boards. And in the end the vegetables and fruits with the green boards.
The biggest challenge for in-flight caterers is sheer volume. Even a smaller airline like Crossair serves a vast number of people.
We have about, in the average, about 15,000 passengers per day, and mostly 95% of them has to be served. So it's about 13,000 meals what we are producing every day.
Once prepared, raw ingredients move on into the kitchen. These peppers are for business class. In economy, you're more likely to be eating frozen vegetables. Truth is that even the smallest element of your meal is influenced by cost.
I think for the whole airline industry, money is really important. For example, if you have a tray where you create a meal and you add just a little decoration, for example, an olive, then not only the olive costs you for a cent, now it's the movement, the hand who puts the olive from the glass on the meal, on the tray. And this costs you 3 times the money of the olive. And if you multiply this by 5,000 meals per day, it's a huge bunch of money what you're saving or what you're spending more on that meal.
From the kitchen, cooked food is blast chilled until it is ready for assembly. Hygiene is paramount, especially as meals can be prepared up to 24 hours before they are eaten. Food is only allowed to be in the assembly area for 20 minutes until it has to be re-chilled. Also under firm control are the portions.
every meal is the same, because if you are on the flight, if you are hungry and you can see your neighbor has more than you, you're not very happy.
Cards not only confirm what a meal should look like, but dictate weights to the nearest gram. Elsewhere, other parts of the catering service are coming together. Business class passengers have their silver cutlery hand-rolled, whilst for economy there's a machine. On a typical jumbo flight there can be as many as 6,000 individual items of cutlery and crockery. This whole process is incredibly labour-intensive. Your meal will have passed through dozens of hands before it reaches you. But whilst some no-frills operators like EasyJet are abandoning catering to save money, others like Crossair believe quality service pays.
Since I love good food and good wine, catering for me is very important, and I believe for my passengers as well. That's why Crossair always was giving to the passengers the best catering that we can give.
Moritz Suter has an unusual measure of customer appreciation.
Some passengers, they take home a little souvenir from Crossair. And they especially appreciate very much the little silver coffee spoon. And last year we have lost almost about 250,000 silver coffee spoons.
But the proof of the breakfast is in the eating. So what was the people's verdict?
It was very good, yes. I had a roll and some cheese and orange juice. It was adequate.
It's very nice. It's fresh, well presented, warm.
I think this is omelette, I'm not too sure. It could be, maybe it's more to other people's tastes than my own.
And typical early morning economy fare.
I thought it was great. Yeah, liked it. And the children liked it, which is good.
And now for an outstanding display of Italian skill and showmanship. The Frecci Tricolori have been displaying throughout Europe this year, and we hope to see them in Britain again next season. At last our pilot trainees reach Heathrow. Last week we saw them facing the infamous instrument rating flight test, one of the many exams and tests they've had to pass on their way to joining British Airways with the title of First Officer. Now they come to London to be initiated into the world of the airline pilot. For James and Adam, their introduction to jet aircraft begins here.
This is actually the cockpit of a BA 737-400, but it isn't going anywhere. It's one of more than a dozen of these £10 million machines which are bolted firmly to the floor at Cranebank. That's the British Airways training centre near Heathrow, where all cadets must come to learn safely from their mistakes before being let loose on the real thing.
Well, James and Adam are doing very well for this stage of the game. They've done 10 details on the simulator so far, and I would assess them as slightly above average. From here they'll move on down to the 737 down at Gatwick.
And checks to the line, please.
This £10 million piece of virtual reality is the closest they've so far been to flying a jet. But just how realistic is it?
There are subtle differences in terms of G, sideways G and longitudinal G. There is none in the simulator, which you get in the aircraft. But what I would say is that if you can fly the simulator well, then you'll fly the airplane very well indeed.
But training to be an airline pilot isn't just about learning to fly. There are other crucial skills.
But the very, very serious matter of talking to the people back there, does this take much learning?
I think it does take quite a lot of learning and practice, but in particular it requires a degree of confidence about how you're going to deliver the cabin address and who you're actually talking to, what you're going to say.
So I like reassuring and confidence.
Yep, making cabin announcements is considered a very serious business. James, Adam and their colleagues spend much of their time in the classroom learning to do them properly. So how do you learn to sound like Captain Calm and Collected?
Great stuff, isn't it? And you won't recognise it. There's some jargon which is obvious. You know, they don't want to hear about QNIMs, ETAs, ATC, slots. But don't go telling fibs ever, because you'll get caught out by them. Okay. Wanna have a go then?
At this point, the new recruits are left alone to talk into a tape recorder.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is your First Officer, Adam Beattie. We're currently in the cruise at 33,000 feet, with approximately 6 hours to our scheduled arrival at London Gatwick.
We expect to land in about 15 minutes on-time arrival. The local time in Nice, if you'd like to adjust your watches, is 9:30 p.m.
It's a lovely clear evening in Geneva. We've got light southwesterly winds. Temperatures are balmy 18 degrees centigrade, 64 degrees Fahrenheit. And the weather at London is fine, warm, with an outside temperature of about 15 degrees Celsius, 59 degrees Fahrenheit. I'd just like to say thank you for flying with British Airways.
Compared with this, flying a plane load of people is a doddle.
God, shaking, isn't it? All right, I know the outfit looks rather silly, but this is actually one of the most serious bits of the training, because of course safety comes first. And one of the things the students have to learn is how to evacuate the plane in an emergency. You go out of here. I think a Geronimo is in order. Geronimo! Can I do that again, please?
While I tried the smaller 737 slide, the new first officers had their first jumbo experience, leaping from 25 feet up. Followed by an emergency evacuation. And if that's not enough, they're also expected to practice life raft drills at the local pool. They brush up on their first aid and try out the latest gadgets used by the cabin crew. But the main focus of their training is the simulator, encountering emergencies like this. They'll spend around 40 hours in the sim practicing drills like this rapid depressurization until it becomes second nature. But it's easy to lose sight of the fact that this isn't real.
You completely forget that you're in a little box in a sort of cavernous room 20 foot off the ground. I mean, the highlight of the course really is this final stretch now before we go on to our base training. And today's drills that you've seen with the depressurisation is very, very realistic. I don't know, maybe in 3-4 years' time it may become sort of a little bit more routine, but certainly at the moment it's getting more and more exciting sort of every day, so it's very good.
And within a matter of days, these new recruits will be flying fare-paying passengers. Their training is almost complete, but next week we'll see their final challenge when they get their hands on a £35 million jet for the first time.
Piloting a 747 jumbo jet nowadays is all about programming computers, monitoring the aircraft systems and twiddling the odd switch. Well, for some pilots, flying a jumbo jet really does mean flying. We're on the flight deck of an Air New Zealand Boeing 747-200, heading towards one of the remotest long-haul destinations in the world, the Pacific island of Raratonga.
So we anticipate going visual and we'll go just downwind straight away, shall we? Rather than pick up the ILS. Yeah.
Raratonga lies 1,630 nautical miles northeast of Auckland, New Zealand. To navigate there and fly the approach requires an uncommon degree of airmanship.
There's the island there, Peter. Tell them we're visual and we'll join downwind. I'll take flat one, thanks, Alan.
The island's airport is equipped with conventional landing aids, but the approach today is strictly hands-on.
So there's a nice view of the island there with Avarua, the main centre, straight ahead. And we're going to turn right-hand downwind.
Remarkably, Captain Mark Eason is flying his 747 on exactly the same elementary circuit that we all learnt to fly years ago for our basic private pilot's licence.
Flap 20. Okay, ILS is my side and set and checks. Gear down, thank you. We're right 170 knots at the moment. 170 knots. Well, I still don't think we've got the ILS there. Ask him if it's on. It is now.
Landing gear, around 1,000.
And
green line.
Okay, thank you. And arm the ILS, thank you. And flap 30.
30 green line.
Check. It's fine.
Okay. 500 feet.
Minimum.
Okay, we're at 150 knots we're aiming for here.
10 on the nose, 4 degrees left front now. 100, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
It's hard to believe that a 150-ton aircraft can still fly the kind of visual approach weekend pilots use on their local grass strip. But then flying the South Pacific Islands is a rather special aviation experience and not confined to 4-engined, wide-body jets. Raratonga is a staggeringly beautiful tiny dot in the Pacific Ocean. The economy and culture of the islands have been transformed by a fleet of regional aircraft. This Banderanti of Air Raratonga is setting off for Aitutaki, one of the airline's 9 destinations in the Cook Islands. It's one of the world's most beautiful airline networks, where pearl farmers rub shoulders with tourists. Captain Josiah Tayo has probably one of the most enjoyable jobs in civil aviation.
Well, I think the enjoyment is just being out there, just flying amongst sort of the Pacific Ocean, really. It's my homeland, and I sort of love flying between islands. It's always been a dream of mine since I was young. Home is where your heart is, and I've lived in the Cook Islands all my life, and I think I probably will live here till the end of my career. Most of the year, sort of yearly, throughout the year, we get really good weather. You're averaging between like Most of the islands about 24 to 26 degrees Celsius. Really warm conditions. Oh, well, the landing today will be coming in from the southern side of the island, and then we'll veer off to the left for a right-hand circuit onto the runway.
Just 100 miles away is Aitutaki, surrounded by a 40-mile lagoon.
There's the odd light turbulence as we get a bit lower, but not too bumpy. We try and keep it as comfortable as possible. Yeah.
Stress levels, even for air traffic controllers, are kept to a minimum.
Surface condition, the wind is 100 at 08 knots.
There's clouds there, temperature 27, G-AWNH 1014.
Sliding over the crystal clear waters of Aitutaki Atoll, we make a low pass over the runway to check for wildlife. The Bandarangi is officially classed as a regional or commuter aircraft. Here in the Pacific, regional airline services do more than just feed passengers into the hubs of major carriers. They keep whole economies alive. The airline has breathed new life into the islands. Now each year 60,000 travellers fly in and out of the sandstrip airfields which grace these remote Pacific islands.
We're really perhaps at the mercy of the airlines, we should say, for our tourist numbers in the Cook Islands, outside of the odd passenger liner that may call here. But clearly we depend so heavily on the aviation and the airlines for the lifeblood of our economy.
Perhaps most important of all, the aviation link has brought remote island communities closer together, providing the kind of essential services which make life that little bit more comfortable for everyone. Among the islanders of the South Pacific, new traditions are being born. While their heritage may have relied on the sea and long dangerous voyages of discovery, in the future it'll be the air routes which will cement the cultures of the Cook Islands. Sadly, that's it for tonight. But do join us again next week for another packed show.
A bit harder.
And on our next programme, I try my hand at aerobatics. Vicky Kimm uncovers the secrets of the turnaround.
Sometimes we find nickels.
And our pilot trainees fly circuits in a big jet.
Visiting a workshop where the cars are still handmade, back to ground level with top